Hello and welcome back to the Write Your Path podcast. My name is Lolly Spindler. I'm a writer, editor, book doula, and writing coach. And today on the pod, I have my good friend Gloria Álvarez. She is an incredible political commentator, TV host, radio host. I was actually on her podcast, Red Pill, last year, and that interview was in Spanish. So now she's on my podcast in English.
Yeah, for English, press 1.
And so I'm going to let her introduce herself and then we will dive in. So welcome to the pod, Glo.
Thank you very much, Lolly. I am so happy to be here with you and all your audience. I think that what you're doing is so important, these conversations that are very nourishing. How can I describe myself? I am Guatemalan-Cuban-Hungarian that started in the political analysis because basically my family were victims of totalitarian governments, specifically Soviet communism, Nazism, and Cuban communism. And I think that since I was very young, that drove me into started thinking like, why do we live in the systems that we lived? Mm-hmm. And that ended up giving me a path of life that I could have never designed for myself. And it's like non-traditional at all for any of the Guatemalan standards, I guess.
Yeah. It's very much your dharma.
Yes.
It's chosen for you. So Glo and I met through yoga. We met through Atma, which I've mentioned on this podcast a million times. And we went to India together last year. So she went again this year. So we were just catching up on that. So that's how we met for the context. And so I'm really curious kind of how you came to your work now. Like, give us a little background of where you grew up, what life was like for you, where you studied, why you decided to study what you did, and then kind of how you ended up going into politics, becoming like a political commentator, but also a candidate. And also, she's also an author. I just went to her book launch a few months ago. So just kind of like give us like the lay of the land of how you wrote your path to end up where you are today.
Okay, do you have time?
Yes, have as much time as you want.
So most of the things that happen in my life, I never planned it. Actually, like even my existence in this planet was an accident. My parents were not supposed to have me, but Guatemala in the 80s is like, okay. And I guess that they had some things in common that gave me a very structural backbone. Both my parents love work ethics, honesty. They were, my dad already passed away, but they both endured friendships a lot, more than their romantic relationship, I have to say. And that has been a struggle for me as well.
The patrones.
Yes, exacto. The love for animals. They both came from immigrant families that lost everything, so they were very resilient. And these characteristics, I think, are very important to mention because sometimes we only, especially nowadays, we tend to therapize, I don't know how to say, therapize our parents. And we forget that they were product also of, the 80s in Guatemala and a lot of trauma, right? But that gave me a lot of context because since I was very young, especially with my Cuban grandparents, they were always talking about Cuba and they had a different accent. And I was like, Grandma, why do you speak differently? And she was like, what are you talking about, chica? Y yo como like, people don't talk like that. She's like, oh, well, it's because we're from Cuba. And I'm like, what's Cuba? And she's like, an island. And I'm like, let's go. And she's like, ay, tú estás loca. Like, there's a dictator over there. And I'm like, what's a dictator? Well, it's a guy that doesn't let you do anything. And there's no food. And you make lines. And, like, similarly to what happens with, I guess, the Jewish trauma or all the traumas of, families that had to leave everything behind. And that started making me asking more questions. Like, why am I not allowed, right?
Yeah.
And at the same time, my dad was a super fan of everything that was Guatemalan handcrafts and Mayan, way of vision of life.
Wow.
And my mom grew up in Lake Atitlan.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I love Lago Atitlan.
Lago Atitlan is the best.
I love it.
And it was like this hippie base for the 1970s. And that, since I was very little, resonated a lot. Like I was drawn to the colors of the textiles, to the indigenous cosmovision. And it was very like it would make me very angry when I would listen to people say like, "Ay, los indios," and this division that I could see in the country, because Guatemala is very racist. And since I came from like a background from different places, it didn't make sense to me. Like, why are you gonna, make someone less for something they didn't choose? So all these questions always on my mind, like questioning the system, but also growing up Catholic, because that's what they taught me, that was the tradition. And I went to different schools because we moved a lot. My first move when I was 9 years old to Honduras, to Tegucigalpa, because of my dad's work. He worked in Johnson & Johnson for marketing. So being the new girl, starting in a new school, having new friends, leaving friends behind. Then I moved to El Salvador. So again, the same thing. I spent 7 years in the 90s, El Salvador. Nothing like the El Salvador of Bukele right now. Very, very different. And then going back to Guatemala when I was 17, and you would say, well, but it was like a gap of 9 years, but it means a lot.
Yeah, very formative years.
Very formative years. And always in different, I tried everything. Only girls at school, girls and boys, English, Catholic, and all of that. And then like this need of questioning authority, because I knew that authority was, something was wrong if you would just give all the power to authority. When adolescence hit it and sexuality was seen as something dirty, sinful, and bad, I started having problems. Because like I was exploring my sexuality, and then I would go to school and they would say that, no, that's really bad. Very different from now what we learn like in Atma, right? And the sacred femininity and all of this. And then they would say that gay people were all dirty and full of AIDS and they are sinful, and like this horrible mentality. And I had never been in contrast with other ways of life. It's very difficult in Central America to find a Muslim friend or a Buddhist friend. Like, it didn't happen to me. So then I go back to Guatemala. It's time for college, and my grandma always said like, you should be a lawyer because you love defending lost causes.
I love that.
Like one of those things that Ramon, our meditation teacher, always says, right? Like, you ended up studying because someone in your family said this thing, right? But the thing is that when I looked at lawyers, it was on TV, right? Like American TV, like they would go to the court and defend and blah, blah. And I was like, yes! Oh my God, I want to do that. But in Guatemala, we don't have the common law system. We have the French system, which is all like paper. There's no like actual practice. So I went to a college fair and I was like, listen, this is why I tell you, most of my life has been like, I don't want this, and then something else opens. It's not like I go for like, oh, this is what I want. No, it was like, listen, like I love law, but it's very boring in Guatemala. And then in this university, they were like, hey, why don't you study international affairs? And I'm like, what the fuck is that? And they showed me, and it was like history, philosophy, African studies, East Asian studies, and all of this opening to the world. And I was like, oh my God, I want that. And I went back to my parents and I was like, I'm going to study this. And they were like, what are you going to do with it? And I'm like, I have no idea. But I love it. And since I was 17, it was very clear to me that if you love something, even if you don't know what the fuck you're gonna do with that, you're gonna be okay. And I sucked at math and chemistry and physics, and then I ended up having this amazing podcast with Neil deGrasse Tyson talking about the cosmos. And I was like, if someone would have teach me
it that way,
that way, okay, and maybe I would be an astronaut right now, but it didn't happen that way. And so I started studying in university, and then I had this friend, and he said like, hey, they're looking for people on the radio. Why don't you apply? And I'm like, are you crazy? Like, I'm studying international affairs and political science. What does that have to do with it? Radio. He's like, well, but it's some money. It's only 3 hours a day. It's perfect if you're studying. And I was doing two BAs at the same time.
Oh, wow.
yeah, so I went to apply for the radio, and it never clicked on that moment that my Cuban grandfather, he was a radio aficionado.
Oh.
When the radio was like the WhatsApp, you know,
yeah.
And he used to help people escape from Cuba, or when there was an earthquake, like, you know, like, oh, they need medicine here. And it never clicked to me, like, yeah, like,
you had that thread.
I had that, you know. And then I went to my dad, because my dad was like Robert De Niro in Meet the Parents. He was always like, no. And I was like, you don't even know what the plan is. The answer is no. And I was like, Dad, I want to work. And of course, he also did radio when he was young with his dad.
Yeah.
And he was like, okay, I think it's a good idea. And I was like, holy shit. Okay, now I have a job. And so I would go to school in the morning, and then in the afternoon I had my music radio show, but just talking like about music and, you know, movies and whatever.
Oh, cool.
And and then while I was at school, I ended up in the one and only Libertarian university in the world.
Wow.
Yeah. By chance.
Wow.
It was just because it was the only school in Guatemala that offered the career that I wanted. And this is where I always say, like, if I would have ended up in another school, like if you end up in a yoga studio that is not as profound as Atma, well, maybe you will be very good at doing the poses, but you're never going to have and sometimes those decisions are chance, you know? Something bigger than yourself
is guiding you.
Is guiding you. And so this university was questioning all the totalitarian regimes and teaching about free market and how the individual is equal in rights regardless of who they are. And I really like that mentality, although most of the kids that go to that school are from like the rich families of Guatemala. They learn this equality, open, freedom ideas, but then when they go to like their family business, they keep endorsing the system of the country, right? But it really formed me in that way, and then I was like, okay, it's not only a problem about communism, it's a problem about when government starts treating us like we're incapable of making our own decisions. And I really had a problem with that. So I was very idealistic, and I started applying for scholarships, and I ended up in DC. I did an internship in a libertarian think tank, which I really loved because they were like very objective through the Republicans when they were doing like shit that was not, you know, according to what the original idea of the United States, or to the Democrats as well. And I was like, okay, I like these people because they're not like one-sided, and it's not about like you know, going after one person regardless of what they're doing, but the ideas. So that really formed me, and I did some courses in Georgetown, public policy, international affairs. Then I went to Belgium because I didn't have the money to study in NYU. They accepted me, but they didn't give me the scholarship. And I went to the other side of the spectrum because they were really, really socialist, right? And this European guilt of having colonized the world, and that they now have to, you know, make reparations and giving aid, but how that aid ends up in the hands of these governments that make it so difficult for Africans to thrive, or Latin Americans. And I started having a problem with that. And then I ended up in Rome, and all this because I was like applying different scholarships, but also because I had a boyfriend in DC and he cheated on me. So my plan to go back to DC was like, no, that's over. So let's
like, I'm just gonna stay in Europe for as long as I can.
Exacto, because like going back to Guatemala felt like defeat. And I was like 24 years old, you know, like, how am I gonna go back? But I already had a job for the OAS. And I said no, because I didn't want to be in DC. And that is another thing that like changed my life, right? And now I'm like, good thing that guy cheated on me, because probably in the OAS I would have killed someone because of their inefficiency, right? So I go back to Guatemala with this existential crisis. I had like 2 master's degree, postgraduate, all to specialize myself in how to work in these international agencies like the World Bank and the UN. And the more I studied it, I was like, no, like these people are not interested in ending poverty anytime soon, because then they are out of a job.
Yep.
So I don't want to be a part of that. Most of like, very similar to what Ramon, that's why I resonate a lot with how Atma teaches things, right? Like you won't learn the essence of things if you are part of the Maya, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't want to be part of that Maya.
Yeah.
So I go back to Guatemala, I'm 25, and I have this existential crisis of what the hell am I going to do with myself? I go back to visit my radio friends, and they were like, well, you know, there's a space here from 9 to noon if you want it. And I'm like, yeah, fuck yeah, I love the radio, you know? And I go back to radio. This is 2010. So my peers are talking about like gossip of Lindsay Lohan and Britney Spears and all of that. And I'm enjoying. And one day, like, my boss calls me and he's like, so I'm just looking at your resume and you have all these degrees, like with honors. Like, what the hell are you doing earning 2,000 quetzales, which is like 4,000, 5,000 pesos a month, in a radio show? And I explained to him my existential crisis. And he's like, I want that on air. And I'm
wow.
Like, that changed my life again. And I was like, are you sure? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, well, but this is gonna create chaos because I'm a libertarian. And he's like, what is that? And I'm like, well, you know, it's free markets, it's free minds. The right wing doesn't like me because I'm not a conservative. The left wing doesn't like me because I'm not a communist. And basically it will create a lot of hate or division. He's like, I want that. And I was like, okay. So I go back home and I remember that we had like this text messages. The more text messages you would get on air, they would pay you like 100 quetzales for every 1,000 messages that you would get on your time, right? Wow. This is before like Facebook and all of that, right? So I was like, okay, what can I give the young people so they send text messages to me and I can make more money, right? Yeah. And so my friends were like, oh, I have Lindsay Lohan in bikini, so send me 50-50 on a text message and I'll send you the photo. It was stuff like that. Oh my God. And
then you come in and you're like, so this is what libertarianism is.
Exacto. And I was like, okay, so I have the mission to talk about libertarian ideas in a very basic radio station where most young people, you know, are like interested in another thing. How am I gonna do this? And so I said, okay, what am I good at? I'm good at getting scholarships. So I went on air and I was like, listen, the government is not interested in educating you because the more stupid you are, the cheaper it is to buy your vote. So you have two options. You stay dumb, and honestly, in Guatemala, the education offer, it's getting better, but mostly in the private sector. But in the public sector, there's almost no alternative for you.
Wow.
So I have scholarships here, and I have a scholarship to study medicine in Australia, advertisement in Spain, engineering in India, and I would go online to the different embassies and get the scholarships, and I would be like, if you send me the word beca, and the scholarship is beca, to a text message, I'm gonna send you the scholarship, and if you need tips on how to, fill it in, let me know. And then like my radio show is skyrocketed in rating. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And it's so helpful too. Like you're actually helping provide opportunities for people.
Yeah. Like even like I remember a guy, he was indigenous. He applied for a scholarship in architecture in Salamanca. Wow. And his mom was so nervous because no one in their family had ridden on an airplane. Oh. And they went to the radio with this massive flower arrangement for myself and like crying and thank you because you inspired me. And this was scholarships that no one was applying because no one knew that they existed. They were there, right? Yeah. But that also started creating resentment because then like they were like, you're the type of person that says that poor people are poor because they want to. You know, like that kind of resentment, especially from the public university, because I would say like, the public university in Guatemala is not even an educational institution. It's a political one. They decide a lot of the things that are happening in the constitution, in the unions. It's very corrupt.
Wow.
And so that started giving me my first haters, which without them I wouldn't have the book that I just recently wrote, you know. And then they called me from a bank. I will never forget, they sent me a Facebook message and I was like, why does Banco Industrial, one of the biggest banks in Guatemala, wants to talk with me? Like, what did I do wrong? And I go to this interview and they're like, we're loving what you are putting on air. Because of course I started talking about free market ideas for everything, environment, feminism, children rights, how to deal with health from a private perspective without the government, education. They allow me to interview political candidates. I started bringing people that would never go to that radio station, you know. So they called me from this bank and they're like, we want you to be our community manager. And I was like, what is that? This is 2011.
Wow.
And I remember in Guatemala there was a lot of resistance for social media. Like some people were like, it's gonna be a fashion, it's gonna go away. And this bank was like, no, we need to invest on this. And we're gonna pay you. I remember watching the offer and trying to keep my poster because it was like 10,000 quetzales.
Wow.
Which was like a fucking lot, you know, for that moment. And I was like, oh my God. So I started working there and making content. And I started understanding how Facebook worked. But Facebook from like the ancient times, when it was people, when it was like about connecting with friends, there was no algorithm. The corporations and the political parties have no idea how to, you know, but it gave me a lot of expertise on that. And then one of the biggest cell phone companies in Guatemala, Tigo, they called me, it was like 2 years after, and they're like, we want you to be our PR manager.
Oh, wow.
And I was like 27. And when they told me how much I was going to earn, it was like the triple from the bank. And I was like, holy shit. And all these jobs came to my lap because I decided to work for 2,000 quetzales on the radio. Because that's how they heard about me. And I was having peers that had some of my education, maybe not that many degrees, and they were like, no, I refuse to work for less than 10,000 quetzales from the bottom line. And years would pass and they wouldn't get, you know, their different offers. Right? And I understand that this was the reality for us millennials. It's even harder now for the centennials, right? But I truly believe that the shittiest task that you can have, whatever it is that life is putting in front of you, if you do it with tapas, with love, with excellence, something good is going to come out of that, you know?
I totally agree.
And so then they were doing like this think tank, do tank movement, and they hired me. And I started doing also political activism in Guatemala. So I started doing like a policy and protest in front of the Congress. And we would arrive to the Congress with like cockroaches, piñatas, and like with these masks of like, let's fumiguemos el Congreso because this is so fucked up. Like really fucked up shit happened on those years. I remember there was like an orphanage, a public orphanage from the state, and they burned like 40 girls because they locked them up.
Fuck.
Yeah, very fucked up. This is a product of the fact that there's a monopoly in the adoption system of Guatemala, product of that a lot of foreigners would adopt Guatemalan children and then exploit them. And so the solution was, let's not let adoptions happen at all. And then we would do protests to make, you know, public policy that would change that reality. Very frustrating because you go to Congress and they say thank you, and then they, you know, put it on a shelf, and that was it. And then one day they invite me to this Congress in Spain. They were inviting politicals from Guatemala, like Congress people from Guatemala, but no one replied because it was only 3 days in Spain. So they contacted me and they were like, listen, we know that you're not like a public officer, but would you like to come to represent Guatemala? And my boss at the time from this think tank movement, he was like, well, you know what, go. Because how embarrassing that Guatemala is going to be with an empty chair. You know? And these congresses, they don't do shit, you know. It's like people sing Kumbaya for 3 days. Yeah, we're going to change the world. You eat these delicious canapés.
They're like, yeah, just go get fat on canapés and make some new friends.
Y pues fuck it, va. Y yo como, okay, fine. So I go to Zaragoza, and it was like a 3-day congress, and it was actually very interesting. I remember we talking about drug trafficking, human trafficking, pollution, immigration, like the real problems of Latin America. And most of my peers were in public office, you know, from everywhere, Argentina, Chile, Venezuela. On the last day, this guy from Cuba who had never left the island until that time, he was like 30 something, and he was wearing a suit for the first time in his life that someone borrowed because he didn't have. He asks to talk, and he's like, please help us, like Cuba is in deep shit, and I don't understand why the rest of the continent doesn't see it. And of course that like broke my Cuban heart, right? And then this Venezuelan guy, he also takes a stand, and he's like, please help Venezuela. And this was 2014, like where things were really fucked up. And because these two guys speak with such desperation, I asked also to speak, and I thought I was just speaking for the people that were there, you know. And I said, you know what, guys, let's use technology to dismantle these fucking dictatorships, because they keep having this propaganda that everything is great in Venezuela and Cuba. Fuck it, now we all have a cell phone. Now we can all be a journalist. Now we can all, you know, like do something. Little did I know what the social media was gonna, you know, become 10 years later, like AI and fake videos. And no, in that moment was like, pick up your phone and tell the truth. Right? So I go back home, and like 2 months pass, and my boss is like, so how was the Congress? And I was like, exactly what you said. We all talked amazing stuff. It stayed there. And that's it. But then I went to a weekend in Antigua with my friends, and when I come back to office on Monday, I go to my email, and I have like 3,000 emails from everywhere, like Miami, Venezuela, Argentina, Spain. I was like, fuck, I am hacked. You know? And then they call to my office, and the receptionist, she's like, Gloria, they are calling you from Argentina. And by this point in my life, I've never been from the south of Nicaragua. Like I knew about Latin America because I studied a lot, and I had friends already from all over the world because of the places that I lived. But I've never actually been like physically, you know, in Latin America. And they call me from Argentina, and they're like, sí, viste, te estamos llamando por tu video viral. Y yo quedé, what viral video? What are you talking about? Y vos no has visto, métete en YouTube.
YouTube.
And I go to YouTube, and it was like the Congress page, the Parlamento Ibero-Americano. It was not my page. And it was like 1 million views, the speech that I have given, that I didn't even fucking know that they were like recording and that they put up.
Wow.
And I was like, oh fuck. And then all the emails that I had, because I went viral, like 1 million views in 3 days.
Wow. Which
would be the equivalent of like 20 million views nowadays, you know? And from a country like Guatemala, which is very small. And I started getting all these emails that went from like death threats to like marriage proposals to like, please come to our country and talk about your ideas. And I was super overwhelmed. I was like, what just happened, right? So I started going email through email, and I started like grouping them. Okay, these are the people from Argentina, from Brazil, from Chile, from this to that. I started getting calls from all these media. And I organized this tour. I was like, okay, you are all the people that want to take me to Argentina. Let's make it happen. You are the ones that want to take me to Brazil. So what if the Brazil people hook my flight from Guatemala to Brazil, and then the portion from here to there? And I organized like 7 different countries, people that didn't know each other. And I was just like, with my instinct.
Yeah.
You know, like the way that I discarded some offers is that I put people in the same group of emails, and then automatically the ones that were not serious would never reply.
Yeah.
So the ones that were like more into business, they stayed. I didn't charge that tour because I didn't want to live off the problem. I just, you know, like I said, like if you cover my expenses, that's okay.
Yeah.
And I did this insane tour from Brazil to Argentina to Chile to Ecuador to Bolivia to Venezuela. And then going to Venezuela was a problem in my house.
Damn.
My dad was like, what the fuck are you gonna do in Caracas? You don't understand these fucking comunistas. They're gonna kill you. Y yo como, Dad, the thing is, like, if I'm gonna do this job, if I don't have like the moral ground of saying like, I've been there, motherfucker, you haven't, then people are gonna eat me alive.
Yeah, very true.
And let's imagine that Maduro is right. And every night the CIA goes to the supermarkets, empties everything, and this is why the Venezuelans are starving.
Jesus.
Let's imagine, I said to him, I need to prove it.
Yeah.
But how are you going to take care of yourself? And I was like, okay, my strategy, which that was the one that I did. In every country, every time that a media would, you know, interview me, they would be like, so where are you going? And I was like, I'm going Bolivia, Ecuador, Chile, Venezuela, if they let me in. If they don't let me in, it's okay. I go straight to Colombia.
Yeah.
So I had been announcing, you know, that I was going to Venezuela, which in that moment was like hell on earth. It still is. And I go to Venezuela, and literally everything that my grandparents had told me about Cuba in the same, you know.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my God, the scarcity, the misery, the necessity, the lack of water, the people, like nothing that we saw in India that you wouldn't say that was in Venezuela everywhere, you know.
Wow.
And then like my last day, I said, okay, take me to a supermarket. I'm going to film it. And they were like, are you crazy? You go to jail for that.
Holy shit.
And I was like, yeah, but you know, like I came for a reason.
Yeah.
I want to show people what's going on here. And I'll take my chances. Like, you know, if they incarcerate me, always in my mind was like, if they incarcerate me, it's the best fucking thing that can happen to me. You know, like I was like, I needed to like stick it to the man. You know, like there was something inside of me that was like, yes. I don't know if it's because I was very young or what. But like those days in Venezuela, the Secret Service persecuted me. They sent people to my conferences to boycott me, to yell at me.
Oh my God.
Yes. It's very, very fucked up. So I was like, I'm filming the supermarket. Fuck them. So I put my phone like here in my waist, and the supermarket in itself, it was like a scene from Hunger Games, like militaries in the cashier.
Jesus.
Checking that you're not taking anything that you're not allowed to take on that day. No milk, no meat, no fruits, no vegetables, nothing fresh, nothing.
Damn.
Plastic covers on the freezers, covered with plastic, and the photo of Chavez, who had recently died, and Chavez vive, la revolución sigue. So, you know, there's no food, but there's Chavez, you know. Jesus. Like, insane. And I filmed the whole thing, and I'm like, okay, let's go. I go to the airport. I am, of course, afraid that they won't let me out, because letting me in was also a problem. But they let me out, and when I get to Colombia, I upload everything that I had from Venezuela, you know, the supermarket, the persecution, the this, the that, and boom, like I go viral again, you know, because like I was one of the few people that was brave enough to like, you know, go there. And the right wing of 2015 in Latin America was so happy with me. You know, it was like, here, there's someone that understands that socialism sucks. But then they were like, oh, but you're an atheist? Oh, shit. Oh, my God, and you want to legalize drugs? And you don't think that conversion therapy for gays is a good thing?
Oh, my God.
And you're a feminist? what if you just like don't talk about that part? And I was like, no, I'm a libertarian. Yeah. It's free markets and free minds. Like, it's not only free markets to buy like Prada bags.
Yeah.
It's like free minds for people to live as they want. That's what liberty is all about, you know, philosophically. And then we started having problems because all that right wing that was very, very happy and grateful with me, they didn't like me that much.
Yeah.
And so I wrote but by this point I had written 2 books explaining how socialism had, you know, like destroyed Latin America, and I decided to do a 3rd book called How to Talk to a Conservative. And I dressed like Margaret Thatcher, but with like these sunglasses, and actually like talking very good about Thatcher, because being a woman in the 80s from the Conservative Party, she was betrayed by the Conservatives in office. And she voted to decriminalize homosexuality and also to make abortion legal. And so I said, like, how come this conservative idol from the 80s was way more open-minded than libertarians in Latin America?
Yeah.
At the same time, I write this book, and the people that were following Milei were hating my guts. And we did a debate on abortion, and they destroyed my image. Yeah, and I was like, because, you know, like for libertarians, it's not only the right to, it's life, liberty, and property, right? But there's no meaning in being alive if you're not free.
Yeah.
So for us, it's like the freedom of the woman for the life that she wants comes first than any potential human being. And for the conservatives, it's the other way around. So that was like, that debate and the rise of Milei was the last nail on the coffin of me, like completely separating myself from the right wing. And now that I see Trump and Milei and Bukele, I'm like, thank God.
Got out of there when I could.
Exacto. Got out of there. I'm not associated with them anymore. And they were so angry because they have a really hard time getting women.
Yeah.
And the little women that they get, the few of us that they get, they mistreat.
Yeah.
It happened also with another friend of mine, Antonella. She did the prologue of my new book. And she suffered something similar to myself. So people were like, you know what, Gloria? You are so utopic. You don't like anything. You don't like the communists, but you also don't like the right wing. Like, what the fuck do you like? And by this point in my life, I had given conferences almost all over the American hemisphere.
Wow.
Except Cuba and Peru. I went to Hong Kong. I went to Australia. I spoke in the European Parliament. I went in a lot of countries of Europe with a thing called the Free Market Roadshow.
Wow.
And I was, defending these ideas. And I remember I was in this place in Guatemala for electronic music called The Secret Garden. I was dancing, and I was like 33. And I was like, I know what I'm gonna do. And my friends were like, what the fuck? I'm gonna run for president. And they were like, you realize the Constitution says you have to be 40. And I was like, yeah, I don't care.
I love that.
And I'm gonna run for president. But you don't have a party, and I don't want it, because all the parties in Guatemala are hyper corrupt. So how the fuck are you gonna run? And I'm like, I'm gonna use my platforms, and I'm just gonna make a video.
I love it.
And that's it. Yeah. It's not going to be about corruption. It's not going to be about like campaigning. It's not about giving, like free stuff to poor people to manipulate them. No, I'm just going to make a campaign. And I was super inspired by the 10 principles of Burning Man, because I had been in my first burn. And I was like, this is perfect. A society for 7 days, it's ruled by 10 principles that voluntarily people from all over the world abide.
Yeah.
And no one kills each other. Well, until last year was the first assassination in Burning Man, which very fucked up.
Damn, I did not even know.
Yeah, someone got stabbed. I think that they hadn't figured out who it was. I think it was a Russian guy, the one who died.
Good Lord.
The first murder in 40, how many years? 40 years?
Wow.
For a society of 80,000 people, I think it's not that bad.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
But, it just shows that humanity is humanity, wherever it is. So I decided to run for president and I made my video. And that was very satisfying because of that, people started understanding what was I about. And it was not only I'm against, is what I am for.
Yeah.
And I did it in a very Republican, in the sense of the Republic, in like the Star Wars mentality or Rome. Like I did these 5 non-negotiable things that I'm going to do if you elect me, because they are crucial for getting Guatemala out of the hole that it is in. And then I have 10 other things for you to choose 5 as a democracy. So in these 5, I have things that are like very logistical about administration of the country, like fiscal decentralization, what kind of taxes are we going to have, let's get rid of the unions, how to locate money to security and justice, which is what we don't have. It's more like this kind of things that we really, really need. And then in the other is like the things that Guatemalans need to, come to realize if they want to keep being hypocrites, like gay marriage, abortion, prostitution, euthanasia, plant medicine. And I was doing the calculations with ChatGPT, like how many $1 million would Guatemala gain if they become this wedding destination for LGBT people, this euthanasia destination for all the elders that could, have a dignified death through plant medicine, how much indigenous women would be empowered as shamans from the 21st century if they would started administrating this kind of plant medicine for PTSD. And I'm talking like Guatemala becoming a hub with its beautiful nature and its indigenous background and its resources, because we have a lot of literally medicinal plants, becoming this hub for the world. Come to our country.
Yeah.
Cure your trauma, treat your trauma, your PTSD, your whatever, right? And so I did this presidential campaign in 2019. And of course, all the media started calling me like, are you really running for president? I'm like, fuck yeah.
I love it.
But I don't have the age yet.
Yeah.
And I don't have a party. And then I did a better video for the next elections, because we have elections every 4 years. In 2023, I was 39, and then again. And then we're going to have elections 2027, right? So now I have the age, but still independent candidacies are illegal.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Wild.
Yeah.
That's so wild.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, that's incredible. I'm loving this. You're like trying to stick it to the man at every chance you get, which is like so my style too. I love it so much. It's like, how much more can I fuck you over? Okay, great. Let's do that. So you've already touched on basically like the topic of your most recent book. So I just want to like go into that a little bit, because you were like using social media and technology for your like political purposes, like at the outset when a lot of people weren't. And so now I know like your most recent book is about like kind of like the backlash from that of like social media, and like you talked about your haters too. So just talk to us a little bit about like what happened that like pushed you to write this book, and what you hope people can take away from it and learn from it, that so they don't have to go through the fire like you did.
Well, I think the fire is inevitable. It's just like, if you're gonna go and burn yourself, this is the kit, the survival kit to like lick your wounds. Okay. And it's a really fucking good one.
I love that.
Yeah, the game is so rigged now than from the days that I started, because from the days that I started, actual human beings would have to come up with fake emails to make fake accounts and put fake photos, and it was all like a manual job, very analog. So at least when you were talking about drug legalization and someone would write, "You fucking drug addict," you would know that there was a human being behind. Yeah. Now we don't even have that guarantee. Yeah. Now it's all about bots and algorithms, and the game is so rigged with so many fake accounts controlled, with this artificial intelligence that we don't even know how to control. And I have in my book the summary on how Elon Musk destroyed Twitter, right? Step by step, everything that he did, and making Trump win the elections. Because we now know that without Twitter, Trump wouldn't have won. But the funny thing is that they learned everything from Obama.
Wow.
Obama was the first president who used Facebook to win an election. So from when I started having a fan page that I didn't even want, it was a friend of mine from Microsoft who was like, you should open a fan page on Facebook. And I was like, what? That's some really narcissistic thing to have. He's like, no, because everything that you're talking on the radio for 3 hours can now live 24 hours there. And that's why I started, having like this public image, and then the Instagram and the Twitter, and then engaging with the haters would make me a better thinker. Because
I love that.
Yeah, every time that they would be like, free markets suck because they create oligarchies, I would do a whole answer explaining actually all the oligarchs that you hate are privileged by lobbies, subsidies, and bailouts from the government. That has nothing to do with free market. They're too big to fail. Look at the 2008 ban. And here is a book. Like, I would do these super elaborated answers. I basically became my own bot without knowing it. And I have in my notes like 4,000 notes that every time that someone, has a problem with drug legalization or feminism or free markets or LGBT or the environment, I would go to that database that I've been, working from 2010.
Yeah.
And I now have these answers. And it was never about the hater. It was about the people that are so afraid of speaking their truth. And I always wanted, my inspiration was, I want to give you the tools to never shut up. Because the first thing that dictatorships, be it massive majorities or a guy in office, takes away from you to control you is your freedom of expression. So for me, it was like fundamental that my social medias were this place where there was debate and engagement and this and that, so they all grew organically. And I ended up having like almost 2 million people on my fan page.
Wow.
For 16 years, and then like 300,000 on Instagram, 400,000 on Twitter. But I never paid for none of it. And then by 2015, 2016, I would see these influencers rising from a different approach, which was buying fake accounts. And that's how I knew, okay, the game is changing. And I don't know if the game is gonna be suitable for me, because when socialism was on the rise, they would censor me and shadow ban me and send me the bots of these governments to like harass me because of my free market ideas. But now that the outright fascists are on the rise, like I'm talking about Netanyahu, Putin, Trump, Bukele, Milei, and they're using the same fucked up strategies that the others were using, I'm also being shadow banned.
Wow.
Because I'm talking about individual liberties, right? So at the same time, this new generation, the centennials, I watch things like Adolescence.
Oh man, yeah, that was powerful.
I read Jonathan Haidt's book, The Anxious Generation, about this generation that is having the biggest peaks on suicide, depression, anxiety because of social media. Especially girls. The incel movement, the hate, the polarization. And I was like, okay, if 10 years ago I proposed technology as a way of dismantling these motherfuckers, and 10 years later I understand the emotional cost of using technology to dismantle these motherfuckers, what is the toolkit that has kept me in sanity, in friendship, in love, in understanding that I am no one's savior? Because also that it took a toll on me going to all these countries and people being like, please help us.
Damn.
Like even last year when I went to Israel and Palestine, and you are listening to the trauma on both sides, and the helplessness, and I remember calling my boyfriend and just talking in absolute trauma, and like saying like, and we went to Gaza and I saw the missiles and I saw where Hamas entered, but then I talked with this Holocaust survivor, but then I saw all the bombs, and I went to Ramallah, to the Palestinian side, because I went to both sides, and it's this and that and blah. And after like non-stop talking for like half an hour, Mao was like, mi amor, I think you need to cry. And just in the moment that he reminded me that I was allowed to cry from all the shit that I've been enduring for 5 days, I went like, and there you realize like it takes a toll going to the darkest places on the world, like Israel, like Palestine, like Venezuela, even going to India, it's very spiritual, it's very profound, but it's very deep as well. Like if you're gonna put your body and your mind on the service of these causes, it will take a cost. And especially if you go online and you are doing it with a lot of rage, because you are really mad at what's happening in the world, but from a place of love, and you get a motherfucking hater that is just sitting in his living room, scratching his butt, not doing shit, telling you that you're worthless, or that you are not what you used to be, because they want you to be whatever impression of the right wing they want. You're like, fuck you, And then I see this new generation genuinely suffering from all of this, from everything that social media creates, the sexual predators, the filters, the comparisons, the unachievable standards of beauty, the posting only the happy nice things, which I love when I go to a profile in Instagram that is so like aesthetic and neat, because mine is such a shit show. It's like one day I have a photo with Gypsy, the next day I have a photo with Mao, and then I'm like, I hate Trump. So I was like, okay, I'm a millennial. I'm the last generation that knows how to live on an analog world. From us on, like when we die, Wi-Fi is gonna be like the fifth element. And these guys, these people, they won't remember that there was a time where disconnection was an option. Just like we don't remember that there was a time when electricity, was not there. And we're that generation. We are the generation of the 19th century that knew how to live without electricity. But then when they passed away, it was like, that's it. Humanity changed forever. This is us. So I cannot imagine what it is growing up right now, having 13 years old and having sexual predators on my phone, and mean girls bullying me 24/7, incels hating me just for being a girl. I went viral when I was 29. For better or for worse, I was already a person with a prefrontal cortex developed. These kids, no. And so I wanted to write my story and this emotional toolkit that includes yoga, meditation, plant medicine, the act of saying gratitude for what you have, the necessity of going to therapy, to trauma, humor as a great tool, the amazing thing that stand-up comedians are doing right now, like Jimmy Kimmel, and the importance that we don't lose that, and put it to the service of a generation that I don't even know if it's gonna resonate with them or not. But I think it's the only way we can contribute. So that's
beautiful.
Thank you.
Sharing your wisdom before we all die out and they don't know what it was like. Well, thank you so much for being here. If somebody would like to find your book or find your work online, where can they do that?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram, Facebook not, because they suspended my fan page. I'm trying to find someone from Meta, like a human being that can understand it, because my book is called How to Defend Liberty, and not committing suicide. And the algorithm decided that I was promoting suicide.
Oh my God.
So they suspended my Facebook fan page. But you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, where I have my podcast as well. And there's the episode with Loli as Gloria Álvarez. And TikTok. Also, I have TikTok too. Yeah.
You're everywhere.
I'm everywhere.
She's everywhere.
And nowhere at the same time.
And I will link to all of these in the show notes so that you can keep up with what Glo is doing next. So thank you so much for being here, everyone. Thank you for listening. Please give me a follow and share with someone you think would love this conversation. Until next time, ciao.